Mike, we get asked a lot about KPIs. We have people who rely on them and kind of want to know which ones they should use. We have some people who are almost dismissive of them and are really proud of the fact that they don't use them. There's links to micromanaging, there's links to growth. What are your opinions about KPIs?
Okay. I think essentially, if I was to put it into a nutshell, they're misunderstood, they're misused, and they're mistrusted. And it's a shame because I think they're really powerful tools. But before we look at KPIs, I think we need to look at OKRs first.
OKRs.
Yeah, because a KPI measures activity, is what it does. An OKR, or objective and key result, measures outputs. So if you employ a ditch digger, your OKR is the number of meters a day that they can dig. Easy, really. If you look in recruitment, if you've got a resourcer, then an OKR is the number of qualified candidates they find a day. And another OKR allied to that would be the number of those qualified candidates that the consultant accepts as being suitable for them to follow up with. So you can define a role in terms of its outputs, which you should. In terms of a factory model, particularly, it's made up of a bunch of people doing different things. And it's incredibly important that each person delivers what the factory needs from them, right? And OKRs will do that. Now, as you can see, it's an output from the role, whereas a KPI measures the activity that leads to the output from the role. So back to the ditch digger, it's the number of shovel digs that they can do a minute, because we know if they do 50 a minute in a day, they can dig 10 meters, and that's what we want from that ditch digger. Okay, so for recruiters, it might be, well, okay, we need them to send 30 emails or in messages a day, because we know that if we do that, then we're going to get people, X% of those people will reply, or they're going to need to make so many phone calls to get so many discussions, to get so many acceptances that they can be put forward. So it's measuring the activity that leads to the output. And I think first and foremost, before we dig into that little deeper, those are two very, very different things. I don't think people mind being held to an OKR. It's sort of a target, really. You know, we need you to do this. So if it's a consultant, we need you to deliver this much in the way of revenue, fees per month. That's what we expect from you, right? So that's the target, that's the OKR. And then it brings in a thing called privilege of performance, which means that if you're consistently hitting your OKRs, so you're delivering what that role needs, then we don't need to look at your KPIs, because we don't care what you're doing. Whatever it is that you're doing must be working, because you're giving us the output that we want. And I think that privilege of performance, there's other things that comes in with that, by the way, working patterns, how they're managed, a whole bunch of stuff, really. But just for the purposes of this video, we're really focusing on OKRs. So if you're hitting the OKRs, we're cool. If you're not, then what we need to do is look at the activity that's leading to those OKRs, because the chances are something's wrong. Going back to the resourcer, not making enough phone calls. Therefore, you're not getting enough discussions. Therefore, you're not getting enough people who are prepared to be submitted for the role, right? And so you can use KPIs as a diagnostic. And this really, I think, should be the message in your business. If you deliver what you're supposed to deliver, we don't care about OKRs at all. However, if you don't, it's no big deal. We're not going to beat you up or anything, but we need to diagnose the problem and put it right. Because if you're not hitting your targets, A, the business isn't doing what it should be doing, and B, you're probably not earning the money that you should earn. So we need to understand those problems, put them right through training or coaching, and then we can move forward. And that's really where KPIs come in.
Sorry, Mike, you just said that if your team is doing well, then you don't care about OKRs, but you actually meant KPIs. So if somebody's doing their job properly.
It was a test, Kirsty. Test.
Yeah,
and you were listening
to everybody watching this passed, which is fine. So if I may, essentially what you're saying is when you have people that you manage or people in your team, they will have OKRs, which is essentially result-based things, certain amount of CVs going across, a certain amount of interviews arranged, time periods in which they convert a role or something like that. And then what you would have, if for some reason that output isn't being met, so they aren't getting enough CVs or whatever it might be, then you can go to the next level down, which would be the KPIs, to discover why that's not happening. You use it as a diagnostic to be like, right, they aren't getting enough CVs across. It's because they've only made 3 calls today. That's probably why. And then you would use that to help manage them to be better. Is that what you're saying?
That's essentially it, yeah. So you train your managers to use OKRs predominantly, but then when necessary to be able to dive into the KPIs and figure out what the problem is. And you can always do that. I mean, it really isn't difficult to do that,
I like that, because I think KPIs as an employee are these terrible things that people are going to use to fire you or stop you getting bonuses or something. And this sort of twists it. It's the way of saying, no, KPIs are how we're going to make you better and how we're going to work with you to grow and improve. So I really like that kind of viewpoint on it.
Yeah. I saw on LinkedIn the other day, someone had put KPI means keep people incentivized. And I don't think it is really. I don't think that's what it does. I think it's keep people informed is probably closer to what it is. So if there's a problem, we can figure it out, put it right. But there's one other instance that we would use KPIs, which I need to share as well. And that is when you put someone into a new role for the first time. So it could be somebody you've hired into the business, or it could be someone you're thinking of promoting. Then I think it's a good idea to use KPIs during that period, because it's telling everybody whether people are doing the right amount of activity to get the results that you're looking for in 2 or 3 months' time, or as long as it takes for them to get up to speed. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's part of the onboarding, and I don't think people, if it's done properly, will mind. As soon as we realize the activity levels are what they should be, we can kind of put them away into the drawer and then look for the OKRs and see what happens at the other end.
Okay, so essentially you need both OKRs and KPIs, and you use privilege of performance. If people are hitting their OKRs, you don't need to worry about KPIs.
Essentially, yes, unless of course it's a new starter or somebody into a new role, in which case it's a good idea to do that. So my advice is to have KPIs and OKRs for each of the roles that you have in your business, focus in on the OKRs and use the KPIs when you need to. If you do that, then no one will be bothered, no one will be upset. And quite frankly, everybody should be working very close to peak performance, because that's the point of doing it. So if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more of them, don't forget to subscribe and hit that little bell button so that you'll be informed every time we put one out. And if you've got any comments about how you use KPIs, I'd love to see them down below. See you next time.